Hey everyone! This is a quick reminder to subscribe and hit that like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying my content. Also, feel free to drop your suggestions for future stories in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and let's dive right in. Grief is loud, even when no one can hear it. It had been almost a year since the crash. Since I went from a happily married woman to someone who cried into a pillow so the neighbors wouldn't hear. A year sounds like a long time. People think it's enough. They say things like it gets easier or he'd want you to be happy. But those people go home to someone. They kiss someone. They laugh without guilt, poisoning it halfway through. I tried everything. Therapy, journaling, yoga. I even downloaded Duolingo and convinced myself I was going to learn French like one of those women in sad indie movies. But nothing stuck. Nothing filled the space in my chest where Scott used to live. Even my grief felt secondhand by now, like I'd worn it thin from overuse. Dr. Lentz, my therapist with the endless cardigan collection and eyes that always looked like they knew too much, told me I needed something new. Avery, she'd said, tapping her pen against her legal pad. You need a break. Not just time off, something that doesn't echo him. But Scott was everywhere. In the couch cushions, in the shadows of the hallway, in the stupid mug with the chipped rim he insisted wasn't broken. Every inch of my apartment tasted like him. Like love rotting in a closed jar. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to Walmart. I bought a tent, a hiking backpack, and one of those little jet boil stoves I'd seen people use in YouTube survival videos. I didn't research campsites or check weather forecasts. I just picked a forest. Pisgah National, about 3 hours from the city. Close enough to reach before nightfall, far enough that the air might not taste like memories. I wasn't looking for healing. I didn't believe in that anymore. I just wanted to breathe where the silence didn't feel like a punishment. The drive there was too peaceful. I remember thinking that even as the road narrowed and the trees grew taller, leaning in like nosy neighbors, the further I went, the quieter the world became. Just the sound of my tires on gravel and the occasional rustle of branches swaying in slow, lazy movements. It was the kind of quiet that made you realize how much noise you're usually surrounded by. Phones, sirens, other people's conversations bleeding through apartment walls. When I finally pulled into the dirt parking lot, there were already 10 or so cars lined up like muddy teeth, bumpers caked in dried sludge and pollen. A red Honda stood out to me, mostly because it had a roof box strapped on top like a hat. 3 girls were unloading gear beside it. Big packs, sleeping pads, bear spray. They looked younger than me, maybe mid-20s. The kind of girls who always seemed perfectly prepared without looking like they tried. I climbed out of my car and gave them a polite wave. One of them waved back, the one with freckles and a teal bandana tied around her head. "Hey, you headed up the trail too?" she called out, voice bright and unbothered. "Yeah," I said. "Just a short solo trip." "Us too." "Well, kinda," she smiled. "We're meeting a group further up, a hiking club thing, people who do these forest walks across the country." "That sounds cool," I replied. They wished me luck. I returned the sentiment. Then they were off, laughing and chatting as they disappeared up the gravel path, their footsteps a fading rhythm against the hush. I leaned against the car and took a breath. A real one. Not shaped by grief. Not shallow or tight, just air, pine, earth. For the first time in months, I felt okay. The trail was better than I expected. Wide in some parts, narrow in others, weaving through the trees like a lazy river. The ground was soft with pine needles, and golden sunlight leaked through the canopy in sharp beams, those kind that look holy even if you don't believe in anything. The air smelled like moss and wet bark, like things growing. I passed a few hikers. Quiet nods, soft smiles, the kind of respectful silence that exists only on trails. One couple had a dog, a floppy-eared golden retriever that grinned at me like we shared a secret. After about 2 hours, I stopped for lunch. There was a small clearing just off the trail, one of those designated campsites with logs arranged in a circle and a rusted fire ring at the center. I dropped my pack with a relieved grunt and sat on one of the logs. My thighs were already aching. My back hated me. My feet pulsed like bruised fruit. I pulled out a granola bar, some almonds, and a bottle of water that had already turned warm and flat. That's when I saw them again, the girls from the red Honda. They'd set up camp in the next clearing over, just past a narrow screen of trees. I could hear them laughing, see glimpses of them through the branches. There were 3 of them. Bandana girl, auburn hair, freckles like constellations across her nose. Her laugh was loud and raw, like she didn't care who heard it. Tall one, long black braid, lean frame, moved like she knew the forest personally. The blonde, picture-perfect gear, matched outfit, but her eyes darted around like she was listening for something behind her at all times. Bandana girl noticed me again and walked over, hand raised in a casual wave. "You settling in?" she asked, glancing at my little solo setup. "Yeah," I smiled. "Planning to stay for the week. More camping than hiking." Her eyes lit up. "Oh, that's awesome. You're gonna love it out here. It's different. You'll see." The blonde appeared beside her, tossing a pine cone between her hands like it was a stress ball. "We're doing a fire later," she said. "You should come hang." I hesitated. I hadn't talked to anyone socially in weeks. Months, really. The idea of sitting by a fire with other people, just existing, felt like a foreign concept. But it was tempting. "Sure," I said, "thanks." That night, under a sky so dark it looked painted, we sat around the fire. The flames danced in our eyes, flickering over stories and silences. I told them about Scott, the accident, how my house felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by echoes. The kind of memories that sit beside you on the couch when you're trying to watch TV and pretend you're fine. The girls got quiet. Even the fire seemed to hush for a second. Bandana girl reached across the flames, touched my hand. "I'm really sorry," she said softly. "But maybe the forest brought you here for a reason." Before I could respond, the tall one spoke up, her voice low and certain. "Our group believes the woods have a way of pulling in people who need it. We offer things to it. In return, it keeps us safe. That's how it works." The blonde nodded, her eyes locked on me. "We meet deeper in. There's a fire, a feast, a kind of ceremony." A weird knot twisted in my gut. I laughed, but it came out jagged. "Sounds like a cult." Bandana girl smiled, not offended, almost expectant. "Nah, it's just about giving back. You'll see." I opened my mouth to respond, but stopped. Something in the fire crackled louder than it should have, like a branch snapping under weight. "I think I'm gonna crash," I said quickly, standing up and brushing pine needles from my pants. "Long day." They said good night, like nothing was off. Like we hadn't just casually dropped the word ceremony into conversation, like it was no big deal. But as I zipped up my tent and slid into my sleeping bag, one voice floated through the firelight. "You should really join us, Avery," Bandana girl called, almost sing-song. "You'd love it." And even with my eyes shut tight and the fire far behind me, I didn't sleep. I woke before the sun even scraped the sky. Not gently, not gradually. One moment I was asleep, the next I was bolt upright in my sleeping bag, heart pounding like it had heard something I hadn't. The air inside my tent felt stale, too still, like it had been holding its breath all night. I told myself it was nothing. A weird dream. A bad sleeping angle. A cold morning shiver. But something in my bones disagreed. Something in me had already decided. I had to leave. Not later. Not after breakfast. Now. I moved quickly, quietly, stuffing my gear back into my pack with clumsy fingers. I didn't even boil water for coffee. Didn't even brush my teeth. I just packed and zipped and cinched until I could barely feel the straps on my shoulders. I didn't look toward the girls' camp. I didn't want to know if they were watching. By the time the first thread of light split through the treetops, I was already back on the trail. My boots crunching softly over leaves still damp with dew. The mist clung to everything, low and silvery, like the forest hadn't quite decided to wake up yet. It should have been peaceful. Should have felt like that moment right before the world remembers how loud it is. But the tension in my shoulders wouldn't go away. It started as a tickle. Just that skin-crawling feeling at the base of your neck. The one that whispers, "You're not alone." I brushed it off. Squirrels? Birds. The wind playing tricks. My own nerves gnawing at themselves after last night's weird fireside chat. But the feeling didn't go away. It got stronger, heavier. After half an hour of steady hiking, I stopped and turned around. And saw them. All 3 girls. Standing on the trail behind me, far enough that I couldn't see their faces, close enough that I could feel their eyes. I stood there for a second, unsure of what to do. Maybe they were just headed out for a hike too. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe. Nope. When I started walking again, so did they. I didn't hear footsteps, just the sense of movement, and when I turned again 10 minutes later, still there. Same distance, same spacing, still just watching. Something wasn't right. I sped up, let my feet find a rhythm, pushing faster through the trail's dips and curves. When I checked again, still the same, not closer, not farther, always just there. I slowed down, pretending to tie my boot. Waited. Waited longer. They never passed me. They weren't trying to catch up. They were following. The woods were empty, too empty. No hikers, no crunch of approaching dogs, no couples with matching backpacks, no birdsong. That was the worst part. The silence. I hadn't realized how alive the forest had sounded yesterday until now, when everything felt suspended. Like nature itself was holding its breath. By noon, I was drenched in sweat. My legs burned. My lips felt cracked and useless. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. My eyes darted to every trail marker, every turn in the path, praying for something. A ranger's cabin. A family with screaming kids. Hell, I'd take a squirrel at this point. And then, finally, salvation. A wooden sign nailed to a tree just up ahead. Campsite number 6 in 2 miles. Relief hit me so fast it knocked the wind out of me. I stopped in my tracks, knees weak, chest heaving. 2 miles. That's nothing. That's 30 minutes if I move fast, maybe 20 if adrenaline kicks in. Just 2 more miles and maybe I'd find people. I turned to look behind me one last time. They had stopped, all 3 girls, standing motionless on the path. No movement, no talking, just watching me, and smiling. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile you see in predator documentaries, the kind of smile people wear when they already know how the story ends. My heart punched through my chest. I ran. Branches whipped across my jacket like claws. Roots tried to catch my boots, slick with moss. My pack bounced with every stride, but I didn't slow down. I couldn't. The trees were closing in, the trail narrowing, the light dying. The sun was bleeding out behind the canopy, colors smeared across the sky like bruises, purple, red, and deepening black. I didn't have a flashlight. I didn't even know what time it was. Somewhere along the trail I'd lost the path. Or maybe it had lost me. Either way, the markers were gone, and the forest was swallowing the last of the light faster than I could move. And then, darkness. Not city dark. Not nightlight dark. Pitch black. I stopped, panting, heart hammering so hard I thought it might shake the trees. My breath came out in jagged clouds I couldn't see. I fumbled for my phone. 1%. No signal. I turned on the flashlight, my little miracle square of safety, and aimed it down the trail. Snap. A branch broke somewhere to my left. Loud. Too loud for a squirrel. Too sharp for the wind. I froze. There it was again. Closer this time. Footsteps. Fast ones. I spun around and lifted the phone. Blinding light, right in my face. Someone else's flashlight. I flinched, my hand flying up, and my grip loosened. The phone hit the dirt. Everything went black. I came to on cold earth. Not soft dirt, not forest floor. Cold. Packed. Every pulse a sick drumbeat behind my eyes. I tasted metal, copper thick on my tongue. My lips felt split, dry, smeared with something I didn't want to think about. When I tried to move, pain shot down my spine. My arms were pinned, my legs twisted awkwardly beneath me, and something rough pressed hard against my back. Rope. Not zip ties, not duct tape. Rope. Thick, scratchy, and knotted tight around my wrists. I opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was fire. Not a little campfire. Not the kind you toast marshmallows over. A bonfire. Towering and wild, the flames roared upward, licking at the trees like they were trying to escape gravity itself. It wasn't just tall, it was loud. Crackling, hissing, spitting sparks into the black sky like it was alive and laughing. Shadows moved around it, figures. Dozens of them. Some hunched. Some standing tall. Some whispering to each other in hushed voices that didn't sound like English. I couldn't see their faces. Just flickers of cheekbones and jawlines beneath hoods. Hoods. They all wore cloaks. Brown ones, made from some kind of burlap, hand-stitched, fraying at the edges. Some were stained, some bore faint, dark patterns I didn't recognize, swirls and sharp angles that looked like they belonged in a dead language. My stomach turned. Then someone knelt beside me. A shape in the firelight, small, familiar. "Hey, you're okay," a voice whispered. "I'm sorry." Bandana girl. Her teal bandana was gone now. Her freckles still dotted her cheeks, but her face was different in the firelight. More solemn, softer. Like this was a funeral and I was the guest of honor. She touched my shoulder. Her hand came away red. "I'm sorry," she said again. "We didn't want it to happen like this, but sometimes the forest chooses people, and we have to listen." My throat was too raw to speak. My mouth wouldn't work. I just stared at her, trying to focus on anything but the pounding in my skull and the taste of blood. She looked sad, genuinely sad, like she was sorry she'd had to knock me out and drag me into some kind of forest horror show. The fire crackled louder, and more figures stepped into view. 10, maybe 15, maybe more. I couldn't tell. Their cloaks blended into the woods. All of them were looking at me. Not with anger, not even curiosity. Just stillness. Expectation. "We just want to show you the way," Bandana Girl said, her head tilting slightly. "I think the forest brought you here. I think you need us more than you realize." My vision flickered, sharp and then soft again, like my eyes couldn't decide how much of this they wanted to see. But I caught the glint of something silver near the fire. A large bowl. A crude table made from logs lashed together with vines, and behind it, people were moving, cooking. I could smell it now. Meat, gamey, thick, sweet, the kind of smell that clings to your hair and clothes and doesn't let go. Bandana Girl reached behind me. I felt the ropes loosen. "We're not gonna hurt you," she said. "Just come sit with us. Come to the fire." I couldn't run, not in this state. Not with my phone gone, the night swallowing everything. So I followed. I stood, unsteady, limbs buzzing, and let her lead me by the arm. The others parted slightly as I stepped closer, forming a circle around the fire. A few nodded at me, like I was a guest arriving late to dinner. They showed me where to sit. A log just outside the main ring, close enough to feel the heat biting my cheeks, close enough to hear the singing start. It began with one voice. Low, smooth, like a lullaby sung through a hollowed-out tree. Then another joined in, then another, until the air buzzed with something ancient. No words, just syllables that wound around each other like vines wrapping a neck. A song that didn't care if you understood it. I sat still, muscles locked, eyes fixed on the fire. My legs screamed from the hike, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Then from the long table they began to serve. Wooden bowls, hand-carved, passed out one by one. People took them with reverence, like communion. When one was placed in front of me, I froze. The smell hit me first. Rich, heavy, like cooked meat, but laced with something wild, earthy, metallic. Maybe venison, something hunted, something fresh. Steam curled from the dark chunks inside. Soft, glistening pieces flecked with wild herbs and something that looked like mushrooms. There was no spoon. Everyone ate with their hands. Bandana Girl sat beside me again. She leaned in, her voice soft under the singing. "Eat. It's part of the offering. The forest provides." I stared at her, then at the bowl, then back at the fire. Was it drugged? Was it poisoned? Was it even meat? But this wasn't a movie. This wasn't a haunted podcast or a slasher film or some Reddit creepypasta. This was my life. My legs were bruised, my mouth still tasted like blood. And this bowl of steaming forest stew might be the only thing between me and whatever came next. My stomach growled. I reached in with shaking fingers. The meat was soft, a little sweet, not bad, not amazing, just edible. I chewed, I swallowed, and I ate. Just like everyone else. In silence, bathed in firelight, while the humming died and the chewing began. The warmth spread down my throat into my gut like relief, like safety, like maybe, just maybe, this was all just some weird forest ritual and not a shape. Something moved in the shadows beyond the fire. I turned my head, slowly. It was hanging from a tree. At first I didn't understand what I was seeing, just a shape, swaying slightly in the breeze. Then the firelight shifted, and I saw it clearly. A body, hanging upside down by the ankles, naked, skinned. Its muscles were exposed, glistening like butchered meat, ribs cracked open like a cage, symbols carved into the flesh, delicate and careful, like someone had taken their time. Its head hung limp, hair soaked in blood. The bowl slipped from my hands. I turned and vomited hard into the dirt beside the log. Every bite of meat clawed its way back up, burning my throat. Bandana Girl reached over and gently rubbed my back, like I was carsick or hungover or just needed a moment to adjust. "Sometimes the truth is hard the first time," she whispered, "but the forest never lies, it just shows." I scrambled to my feet, vision spinning. The fire, the faces, the body, the taste. I had eaten human flesh. Someone's body. I had joined them. Even if I hadn't known, and worst of all, they weren't done yet. I was already running before I knew I'd stood up. Branches tore at my sleeves. Something sharp scraped down my cheek. The forest spun and twisted around me, a blur of black bark and red firelight, and the echo of that awful humming song. But I didn't care. I just ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even know which way was away. I just moved. Faster, farther, somewhere. I didn't get far. Hands caught me from behind, rough and fast. 2 of them. One wrapped around my waist, the other gripping my arm like a vice. I screamed, kicked, clawed, but it didn't matter. They dragged me back toward the fire like a stray animal. Bandana Girl was one of them. Her freckles glistened with sweat in the light. She looked sad again, like I was the one making this hard. The other was a man, older, broad-shouldered, face like sandpaper and butcher's hooks for eyes. His grip didn't loosen even when I bit down on his arm hard enough to taste blood. They didn't yell at me. No one did. They just held me there as the circle closed again, as the fire flickered higher. As the man in red stepped forward, he hadn't spoken before, not directly. I hadn't even noticed him until I was too far gone to run, but now, standing in the center of the ring, he was impossible to ignore. He was tall, barefoot, cloak darker than the rest, deep red like dried blood and crushed berries. It moved around him like it had a weight of its own. When he spoke, his voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was velvet, commanding, the kind of voice that didn't shout to be heard, it simply expected obedience. "You're here for a reason," he said, crouching down to my eye level. "The forest calls those who are ready, those who are needed." His face was clean-shaven, kind-looking even. But his eyes? They were empty. Not cold, not evil. Empty. He held something in one hand, a sliver of meat, dark, wet, fresh, still steaming in the firelight, tendons curling along the edges like ribbon. He smiled, not cruelly, not kindly, just inevitably. "Eat," he said softly, "or be eaten." The fire cracked behind him. A log split with a hiss and a pop. Somewhere in the circle, someone had begun humming again, low, haunting, almost beautiful. I looked up at the sky. No stars, just the outlines of trees and darkness above them. A canopy too thick to let in heaven. Tears slid down my cheeks, slow and soundless. I wasn't ready to die. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch and claw and fight until my bones snapped, but I couldn't. Not anymore. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what I'd already eaten. So I opened my mouth. The man in red placed it on my tongue like a priest offering communion. Gentle. Ritualistic. It was warm. Soft. A little sweet. It didn't taste like death. And that was the worst part. Something in me broke. Or maybe something clicked into place. I don't know which. They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They didn't even smile. They just knew. They'd done this before. I wasn't the first. They say if you eat with wolves long enough, you stop flinching when they bare their teeth. I used to run. Every night after that first one, I'd bolt. The second they loosened my bindings or looked away long enough, I'd make a break for it. Down the trail, through the brush, over fallen logs, praying that this time, I'd get far enough. But the forest always brought me back. Sometimes I got lost in circles. Sometimes I'd wake up, bleeding and confused, right outside a new campsite like I'd never left. Sometimes I was dragged, screaming, bruised, mouth forced open, another bite, again and again, until the bindings stopped, until they stopped watching me at night, until I stopped trying to leave. I told myself I was waiting, blending in, pretending, just until I found the right moment. But somewhere between the 3rd feast and the 5th hike through trails not marked on any map, I stopped pretending. I knew the songs now. I hummed along. I learned the chants, the way they folded their hands before the fire, the rules of offering. We moved every day, a new trail, a new clearing, a new circle of fire and stone, always clean, always hidden, always ready. And then came the night I didn't just watch the hunt. I joined. They gave me a rock. That was it. No knife, no speech, just a smooth, heavy stone and a nod. The man was already tied up. He didn't scream, he begged, told us his name, told us he had a wife, told us he didn't understand, but he didn't fight. And when I brought the rock down on his head, it didn't feel like violence. It felt like knocking on a door. When he stopped moving, I felt peace. Bandana Girl clapped me on the back like a proud sister. The others nodded, smiling softly. Like I'd passed a test they knew I would. We were a hunting party now, and we were good. We never picked just anyone, we chose carefully. The ones who looked tender, the sweetest eyes, the softest skin, the best flavor. One night, I asked to go alone. Bandana girl raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" she asked. Not because she didn't trust me, because she did. I nodded. "I'll find someone." And I did. I walked for hours, past the place where the trail ended, into the stretch of forest where no one goes on purpose. That's where I found him. A man in his 30s, camping solo. One of those wide smile types who offers you s'mores before even asking your name. We talked, we laughed, we shared stories under a fire he built too close to the trees. I told him about my group, my hiking club, I said. Big fire, good food, good people. "Sounds nice," he said, yawning, "but I'm probably gonna crash soon." He turned toward his tent. I followed. One strike, clean, efficient. He dropped like meat. I tied him with care, just like they'd taught me, just like they'd done to me. He woke at dusk, blinking through blood. Confused, afraid. I crouched beside him, bowl in hand. The fire crackled behind me. The others waited in the shadows. "You're lucky," I said, voice calm. "You get to choose now, just like I did." He stared at me, horrified. Like I was a monster. I smiled. Because maybe I was.